Late afternoon, light spilled across a grocery store parking lot in Asheville when Ethan Cole knelt beside a stalled luxury sedan. His hands were black with grease, movements calm and practiced. The woman who stepped out of the car didn't belong there. Her suit was sharp, expensive, her impatience colder than the mountain air. When Ethan finally stood, wiping his hands, she froze. Her breath caught. "Eli," she whispered. Not his name. A name from 12 years ago. Ethan's hands stopped, and in that moment the past came back to collect its debt. The November wind cut through the parking lot, scattering dry leaves across cracked asphalt. Ethan had been loading groceries into his aging pickup when he heard the engine sputter and die. Professional instinct kicked in before conscious thought. He grabbed his toolkit from the truck bed and approached. The sedan was a Mercedes S-Class. Black, immaculate except for the steam rising from under the hood. The driver's door opened with a soft click that spoke of German engineering and money. The woman who emerged moved with the kind of precision that came from boardrooms and power lunches. Dark hair pulled back, heels that cost more than Ethan's monthly rent. She didn't look at him immediately. She was already on her phone, voice clipped and professional. "I don't care about the traffic pattern, Gerald. Reschedule the Charlotte meeting. I'll be there by 8. A pause. "No. Send the contracts to my personal email. I'll review them tonight." Ethan popped the hood. Coolant hose. Split clean through. "Ma'am?" He kept his voice neutral, service industry polite. "I can patch this. Get you to the nearest shop." 20 minutes. She finally looked at him, and the world tilted. Ethan saw the exact moment recognition hit. Her phone slipped an inch in her grip. Her mouth opened slightly. Color drained from her face like water from a broken dam. The nickname punched through 12 years like it was yesterday. Like it was still real. Like he was still that person. Ethan's jaw tightened. He looked back at the engine, hands moving automatically even as his mind reeled. "Name's Ethan," he said quietly. "Ethan Cole. You want this fixed or not?" But she was stepping closer now, heels clicking on asphalt. He could smell her perfume. Expensive, unfamiliar. Everything about her was unfamiliar, except the eyes. Those hadn't changed. "Eli, it's me." Victoria. He knew. Of course he knew. Victoria Hale, the woman who vanished from his life the night before his world burned down. Ethan kept working, hands steady, mind racing. "Don't know what you're talking about." His voice was flat, deliberately empty. "You want this fixed, or should I call a tow truck?" "Eli, please. I know it's you." He didn't look up. Couldn't. If he looked at her face, really looked, the wall he'd spent 12 years building might crack. "Lady, I've got a daughter waiting at home. Groceries in my truck that need refrigerating. So either you want your car patched, or you don't." He pulled out the duct tape, began wrapping the split hose. Temporary fix, good enough to get her out of his parking lot, out of his life, back to whatever penthouse she'd descended from. Victoria's breath came faster. She crouched beside him, and Ethan could feel her presence like heat from a fire. "Your voice, the way you move, the scar on your left hand." She was cataloging him like evidence. "Stop." The word came out harder than he intended. Victoria flinched. Ethan stood, wiping his hands on a rag that hadn't been clean in weeks. $40, cash. "My name is Ethan Cole. I'm a mechanic. I live in Asheville. I have a 7-year-old daughter named Mia. That's all you need to know." He held out his hand, palm up, waiting. Victoria stared at him, really stared. Like she was trying to find the boy she'd known underneath the man standing before her. The boy who'd been skinnier. Who'd believed in things like forever and promises. "You ran track," she said quietly. "Distance running. You wanted to study engineering at State. Your mother worked 2 jobs. You called me Vic, even though I told you I hated it." Her voice cracked. "You disappeared the night before graduation. No note. No call. Nothing." Ethan's chest tightened. The ache was familiar. 12 years hadn't dulled it. $40, he repeated. Victoria's hand shook as she pulled bills from her wallet. She pressed 2 20s into his palm. Her fingers lingered a moment too long. I looked for you, she whispered. For months. I thought you were dead. Ethan pocketed the money, turned back to his truck without another word. Don't call me that. He climbed into the pickup, started the engine. Through the rearview mirror, he watched Victoria standing alone in the parking lot, her silhouette sharp against the fading light. His hands were shaking now. He gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles went white. The groceries could wait. Victoria sat in her car for 20 minutes before her hands stopped trembling enough to drive. She made it 3 blocks before she had to pull over again. Eli was alive. Eli had a daughter. Eli had built a life that didn't include her. The rational part of her brain, the CEO part, was already analyzing, calculating. But underneath ran something older, rawer. Grief she'd thought she'd buried, resurfacing like a body in a lake. She needed air. Victoria stepped out of the car, paced the sidewalk. Evening was settling over Asheville, streetlights flickering on. She could see the Blue Ridge Mountains in the distance, dark shapes against a darkening sky. Something caught her eye. A wallet on the passenger seat, brown leather, worn. Not hers. He must have set it down when he leaned in to check the radiator. Forgotten in the shock of seeing her. Victoria's hand hovered over it. This was private. Personal. She should return it immediately. She opened it. Driver's license. North Carolina. Ethan Michael Cole. Date of birth matched. The photo showed the same face that had stood before her, but without the walls. A small smile. Real. Behind the license, a laminated photo. Ethan and a little girl. She had dark curls and his eyes. She was laughing, missing a front tooth. He had her on his shoulders. They were at a park, autumn leaves everywhere. The joy in the photo was so pure it hurt to look at. Victoria's vision blurred. He'd survived. He'd become a father. He'd found happiness. And she'd known none of it. The photo trembled in her hands. All those months of searching. All those calls to hospitals, police stations, anyone who might know. The private investigator who'd found nothing. The guilt that had eaten at her for years, because the last time they'd spoken, they'd argued about her father's upcoming business trip, about her going to Duke instead of State, about futures that felt both inevitable and impossible. She'd thought he'd left because of her. She'd thought he'd stopped loving her. But looking at his face in that parking lot, she'd seen something else entirely. Fear. Not of her, of something deeper, darker. Victoria carefully placed the wallet back where she'd found it. Started the engine. She knew where his garage was. Had seen the business name on his shirt. Cole's Auto Repair. Tomorrow, she'd return the wallet. And maybe, just maybe, she'd start to understand what happened the night Eli disappeared. Cole's Auto Repair occupied a converted warehouse on the industrial edge of town. The building was old brick, windows clouded with years of grease and dust. A hand-painted sign hung above the garage bay. Victoria parked her Mercedes across the street. 7 in the morning. The garage wouldn't open for another hour, but she saw light through the office window. She crossed the street, gravel crunching under her heels. The office door was unlocked. Inside, Ethan sat at a scarred wooden desk, paperwork spread before him. He wore the same gray work shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows. Coffee steamed from a chipped mug. He looked up. Something flickered across his face. Not surprise, more like resignation. You forgot this. Victoria set the wallet on the desk between them. Ethan picked it up, checked the contents quickly. Thanks. Silence stretched. The office was small, functional. Calendars on the wall marked with appointments. A child's drawing taped to the filing cabinet. Stick figures labeled Me and Dad. Tools organized with military precision on pegboards. This was his world now. Compact, controlled, safe. How old is she? Victoria asked quietly. Ethan's eyes went to the drawing. 7. Turns 8 in January. She's beautiful. Yeah. His voice softened microscopically. She is? Her mother. Not a topic I discuss. The walls went back up instantly. Victoria nodded. She stayed standing, knowing sitting would imply she was staying, and he'd ask her to leave faster if she presumed too much. I need to explain, she began. No, you don't. Ethan. He stood now, hands flat on the desk. Look, I don't know what you think this is, but you got your wallet back. We're done. Are we? Victoria met his eyes. Because you looked at me yesterday like I was a ghost, and I spent 12 years thinking you were one. Ethan's jaw worked. People change. People move on. That's life. You have a daughter now. The words hung in the air. Ethan's expression shifted. Guarded. Yes. I do. And she's my priority. My only priority. I'm not trying to disrupt that. Then what are you trying to do, Victoria? It was the first time he'd said her name. Her real name. Not Vic. The formality of it stung more than the anger. Understand, she said simply. I need to understand what happened. Ethan looked away. Out the window, where morning light was turning the mountains gold. Some things don't have explanations you can file in a report. Try me. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. You're a CEO now. I saw it in your car, your clothes, the way you talk. Your father finally got what he wanted. Don't. Victoria's voice sharpened. Don't assume you know anything about my life. Right back at you. They stared at each other across the desk. Two strangers wearing the faces of people they used to know. Ethan sat back down, rubbed his face with both hands. She asks about her mom sometimes, he said quietly. Mia. I tell her the truth, that her mom couldn't stay, that it's not her fault, that she's loved. He looked up. That's all the past I got room for, Victoria. I can't carry yours too. Victoria felt something crack in her chest. One question, she whispered. Just one. Ethan waited. Did I do something? The night before graduation. Did I say something that made you leave? His eyes closed. When they opened. You didn't do anything wrong. It wasn't absolution. But it was something. Victoria nodded. Turned to go. At the door, she paused. I'm in town for 2 weeks. Business. If you change your mind about talking. She set a business card on the filing cabinet. That's my direct line. Ethan didn't respond. Victoria walked out into the morning. The sound of the door closing behind her final as a period. Victoria came back 3 days later. Different car this time. A rental sedan, nondescript. She parked down the block and watched the garage through the morning rush. Ethan arrived at 6:30, unlocked the bays. Within an hour, 3 cars were already on lifts. She didn't approach. Day 4, she brought coffee. Left it at the office door before he arrived. No note. Day 5. The cup was still there, untouched, cold. Day 6. It was gone. Victoria had built an empire by understanding leverage, by knowing when to push and when to wait. In boardrooms, she was relentless. Precise. But this wasn't business. This was archaeology, carefully brushing away 12 years of sediment to find what had been buried underneath. She didn't call, didn't text, didn't force conversations. She simply existed in his periphery. On day 8, she was reading contracts in her rental car when someone tapped on the window. Ethan stood there, hands in his pockets, waiting. Victoria rolled down the window. You're making my customers nervous, he said. I'm parked legally. Still, Victoria closed her laptop. You want me to leave? Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Behind him, she could see into the garage bay. A young guy was working on a transmission. Music played from a radio, country station. Mia has a field trip tomorrow, Ethan said finally. Mountain Nature Center, parent volunteers. I already took off work, but they could use another set of hands. He wasn't looking at her. If you're not busy. Victoria's breath caught. What time? Pickup is 8:30. West Elementary. I'll be there. Ethan nodded. Started to walk away. Eli. She caught herself. Ethan. Why? He turned back. The morning sun lit his face, showed the lines that hadn't been there 12 years ago. The gray starting at his temples. The weight of years lived without her. Because you're not leaving anyway, he said quietly. And I'm tired of pretending I don't see you. Mia Cole was pure energy compressed into a 7-year-old body. She bounded up to Victoria at the school entrance, missing tooth smile enormous, backpack nearly as big as she was. Are you Miss Victoria? Dad said you were helping today. She grabbed Victoria's hand without hesitation. I'm Mia. I'm going to find salamanders. Do you like salamanders? I have a book about them. They can breathe through their skin. Victoria looked at Ethan over Mia's head. He shrugged, half smiling. She doesn't stop, he said. I can see that. The nature center was an hour's drive into the mountains. Victoria rode in Ethan's truck, Mia between them, narrating the entire landscape. Every tree had a story. Every cloud, a shape. Every song on the radio prompted a memory. Ethan listened to all of it with infinite patience. Victoria watched him more than the scenery. This version of Eli of Ethan was new, softer in some ways, harder in others. But the attention he gave his daughter was absolute, like she was the center of his universe, and everything else orbited around her. At the nature center, Mia attached herself to Victoria immediately. Dad's good at bugs, but he doesn't like getting muddy. Do you like getting muddy? I haven't in a while. We're gonna change that. Mia grabbed her hand again, pulling her toward the creek where salamanders supposedly lived. Ethan followed at a distance, giving them space but staying close enough to intervene if needed. Victoria knelt in the mud, helping Mia lift rocks carefully, checking underneath for creatures. The other children shrieked and ran around them. Parent volunteers tried to maintain some semblance of order. Do you know my dad from before? Mia asked suddenly, peering at Victoria with those sharp, familiar eyes. Victoria's hands stilled. A long time ago, yes. He doesn't have many old friends. The simplicity of it landed hard. Mia shook her head. Just Uncle Marcus from the garage, and Mrs. Patterson next door. But she's old. Not old, but like grown-up old. She frowned at a particularly stubborn rock. Help me with this one. Together, they lifted it. 3 salamanders scattered underneath. There. Mia's squeal of delight was pure and perfect. Did you see? Did you see? I saw. Mia looked up at her, muddy and grinning. You're nice. I'm glad you're Dad's old friend. Something in Victoria's chest cracked wider. They found 7 more salamanders before the teacher called everyone back for lunch. Mia ran ahead to show Ethan a particularly impressive specimen she'd caught in a clear container. Victoria walked more slowly, aware of the mud on her slacks, the state of her usually perfect hair. Ethan glanced at her as she approached. You survived. Barely. His mouth twitched. Almost a smile. During lunch, Mia sat between them, still chattering. But there were moments of quiet, too. Moments where Victoria caught Ethan looking at her with something that wasn't quite anger anymore. Curiosity, maybe, or recognition of who she'd been trying to become in his absence. When Mia ran off to play with classmates, Ethan and Victoria sat on a picnic bench, watching the children chase each other through fallen leaves. She's amazing, Victoria said quietly. Yeah, you've done something remarkable. Raising her alone. Ethan's jaw tightened. Wasn't by choice. What happened? He was quiet for so long Victoria thought he wouldn't answer. Her mom was a waitress. Good person. Wrong time in both our lives. He watched Mia climb a tree, ready to jump if she slipped. She tried. For 2 years. But motherhood wasn't what she wanted. She left when Mia was 2. Signed, over custody. Sends birthday cards sometimes. I'm sorry. Don't be. We're good. Better than good. He finally looked at Victoria. She's everything, Vic. Everything I got left, that's real. The nickname slipped out so naturally, neither of them noticed at first. When Victoria did, her eyes filled. Ethan's face changed, like a door unlocking. There was no note, he said suddenly, urgently. That night, I didn't leave because of you. I need you to know that. Victoria's world narrowed to his face. Then why? But Mia was running back, leaves in her hair, demanding they come see the hawk's nest another kid had spotted. The moment passed, but the door, once opened, didn't fully close again. 3 days later, Victoria sat in her hotel room surrounded by documents. She'd started with a simple question. What happened to Elijah Morrison the night before graduation, 12 years ago? Public records showed an arrest, drunk driving, hit and run, property damage. Except Eli didn't drink. Had never drunk. Not once. The arrest report was sparse. No witnesses, no dashcam footage. Just a statement from the responding officer and a damaged storefront on Main Street. But there were inconsistencies. The timeline was wrong. Eli had been arrested at 11 p.m. But Victoria remembered calling him at 11:30, trying to apologize for their argument. The call had gone to voicemail. She'd checked phone records. The call had connected for 17 seconds. Someone had declined it. Victoria kept digging. Court records showed Eli had pleaded guilty, accepted a deal, community service, suspended sentence. But his scholarship to state had been revoked. The engineering program had sent a formal letter of dismissal. It had destroyed his future in one night. Except, Victoria found the damage assessment for the storefront. The photos didn't match the police report. Wrong angle of impact, wrong height. The damage suggested a larger vehicle. A truck, maybe, not the small sedan Eli had driven. She made calls, pulled favors. By midnight, she had security footage from a bank across the street. The video was grainy, but clear enough. A black pickup truck, swerving, hitting the storefront. Eli's sedan was visible in the background, parked legally. The driver who got out of the truck was tall, broad-shouldered. He made a phone call. 30 seconds later, a police cruiser arrived. No alcohol test administered at the scene. No field sobriety test. Just Eli's car being towed and Eli himself being placed in handcuffs. Victoria watched the video 3 more times, heart pounding. Then she called her father. Richard Hale answered on the first ring despite the late hour. Victoria. To what do I owe? Where were you the night of June 14th, 12 years ago? Silence. That's oddly specific. Answer the question. I don't recall. Why? Victoria's hand shook. Because that's the night Elijah Morrison was arrested for a crime he didn't commit, and I just watched security footage showing it was a frame job. Her voice went cold. You knew him. You knew I was dating him. You hated it. The silence stretched longer this time. Victoria, did you do it? Did you destroy his life because he wasn't good enough for me? That boy was trouble. He was 18 years old. He was a distraction. You had Duke waiting. A future. I protected you. Victoria's world tilted. You framed him. I made a problem disappear. Richard's voice was matter-of-fact, businesslike. He was going to hold you back, make you small. You needed to move forward, so you destroyed him. I protected my daughter. Victoria hung up. Then she called her lawyer. The next morning, Victoria walked into Hale Industries headquarters for the first time in a week. Her assistant looked up, startled. Miss Hale, we didn't expect you until clear my schedule and get me every file related to the company's legal actions from 12 years ago. June through August. All of them. That's hundreds of all of them. It took 4 hours to find what she needed. A payment, $50,000. Paid to a man named Douglas Reeves, former police officer. retired to Florida 9 months after the payment cleared. The memo line read, "Consultation fee." Victoria sat back in her leather chair, looking out over the Charlotte skyline. Her father had built this empire. She'd spent 10 years learning from him, becoming him, and now she had to decide if she was willing to burn it all down for a truth 12 years old. Her phone buzzed. Her father's name. She answered. "Don't do anything rash," Richard said without preamble. "Whatever you're thinking, stop. The company has operated on lies, corruption, manipulation, grows stronger every quarter, employs 3,000 people, generates revenue that funds hospitals, schools, charitable foundations. One mistake from over a decade ago doesn't erase that. It wasn't a mistake. It was a choice." Victoria's voice was steel. "You chose to destroy an innocent person for your convenience. I chose my daughter's future over a nobody's dreams. You chose wrong." Victoria hung up again. By the end of the week, she'd handed over the evidence to the North Carolina Bar Association, filed a formal complaint, contacted the DA's office about the fraudulent arrest. The blowback was immediate. Board members called emergency meetings. Investors demanded explanations. The company's stock dipped. Her father threatened to remove her as CEO. Victoria stood in front of the board and laid out everything. The frame job, the payment, the 12-year cover-up. "I'm rectifying this," she said quietly, "with or without board approval. But I won't lead a company built on my father's crimes. If that costs me this position, so be it." The room erupted. When the chaos settled, her father stood. "You're throwing away everything I built for a mechanic?" "No," Victoria said quietly. "I'm correcting a wrong you committed against an innocent person. That's not loyalty to him. That's basic human decency." Richard Hale walked out. 3 board members followed. Victoria stood alone at the head of the table. She'd just declared war on her own family, and she'd never been more certain of anything in her life. Ethan was under a Chevy when his phone rang. He ignored it, focused on the transmission leak. It rang again. "Marcus, can you get that?" His assistant picked up the office phone. "Cole's Auto Repair." A pause. "Yeah, he's here. Hold on." Marcus appeared in the doorway. "Some lawyer guy. Says it's urgent." Ethan slid out from under the car, wiping his hands. Took the phone. "This is Ethan Cole." "Mr. Cole." "My name is James Patterson. I'm with the district attorney's office, Buncombe County. I'm calling about a case from 12 years ago. Case number 2013 to 47892. Do you remember it?" Ethan went still. "Yeah. I remember. New evidence has come to light suggesting your guilty plea was entered under false pretenses. We'd like to discuss expunging your record." The floor seemed to tilt. "What evidence?" "Security footage. Financial records. A sworn statement from Victoria Hale regarding her father's involvement in fabricating the charges against you." Ethan sat down heavily. "Victoria did this?" "Yes, sir. She's been very thorough, and very insistent that we pursue this immediately." A pause. "Mr. Cole, there's a strong possibility you were the victim of a deliberate frame job. We'd like to make this right." Ethan couldn't speak. "Mr. Cole?" "Yeah. Yeah. When do you need me?" They set a meeting for the following week. Ethan hung up, stared at the phone in his hand. 12 years. 12 years of believing he'd made one catastrophic mistake. That his life had fallen apart because he'd been stupid, reckless, in the wrong place at the wrong time. 12 years of guilt, and it had been a lie. He looked up. Marcus was watching him. "Everything okay, boss?" Ethan's throat was tight. "No. Yeah." He walked outside. The afternoon sun was bright. Painful. His hands were shaking. All this time. He pulled out his phone. Found Victoria's number. She answered on the first ring. They called. "The DA. I know. Why? His voice cracked. Why would you do this? Because it was the truth. Victoria's voice was steady, strong. Because you deserved to know. Because I couldn't live with what my father did. You're going to lose everything. No. He could hear the smile in her voice. I'm losing the things that should never have been mine in the first place. Ethan closed his eyes. I thought it was my fault. All of it. It wasn't. It was never your fault. The words he'd needed to hear for 12 years. You were always innocent, Eli. Always. Ethan's breath shuddered out. I'm sorry, Victoria whispered. I'm so sorry I didn't look harder. That I believed the reports. That I let you disappear. You were 19. Old enough to fight for you. You're fighting now. Silence. Charged with everything they weren't saying. Can I see you? Victoria asked softly. I'm still in Asheville. I'd like to. I need to see you. Ethan looked at the mountains. At the garage that had been his whole world for 8 years. At the life he'd built from wreckage. Yeah, he said. Yeah, okay. They met at a park. Not the grocery store parking lot. Not the garage. Somewhere neutral. New. Victoria arrived first. Sat on a bench overlooking the river. Evening was settling in, golden hour lighting the water. Ethan appeared on the path, hands in his jacket pockets. He sat down beside her. Not too close. They watched the water in silence. Mia asks about you, Ethan said finally. Why you haven't come back? What did you tell her? That you're busy. Important work. I have been. Busy. Victoria turned to look at him. Dismantling my father's legacy. Piece by piece. Victoria, I'm not looking for credit. Or sympathy. She cut him off gently. I needed you to know the truth. Needed to fix what could be fixed. That's all. That's not all. She waited. You blew up your life for this, Ethan said quietly. For me. Why? Because you mattered. Matter. Victoria's voice was steady. Because 12 years ago, I lost someone I loved, and I never understood why. And when I found out, it was because my father played God. She shook her head. I couldn't let that stand. You could have. No, I really couldn't. The river flowed. Geese honked somewhere downstream. I'm not him anymore, Ethan said. The guy you knew. That version of me. He died that night in a jail cell. What's left is different. I know. I can't promise you anything. Can't pick up where we left off. Too much time. Too much change. I know that too. Ethan finally looked at her. Really looked. Victoria's smile was sad. But I'd like to know this version. If you'd let me. Because Mia talks about you like you hung the moon. Because I saw you with her at the nature center and you were the most present human being I've ever witnessed. Because the guy I loved 12 years ago is still in there somewhere, under all the armor. She paused. And because I owe it to both of us to see if there's something here worth rebuilding. Friendship? Ethan's tone was careful. For now. If that's all you have room for. He was quiet for a long time. Mia gets attached fast, he said finally. If you're not sure about this, if you're going to leave when it gets complicated, I can't let her go through that. I'm not going anywhere. You say that now, but your life is in Charlotte. The company might not exist in 6 months. Or it might. Either way, I'm making changes. Victoria met his eyes. I've spent 12 years building someone else's dream. I'd like to figure out what mine looks like. And if it doesn't include a small town and a mechanic, then I'll be honest about it. But I think it might. Ethan studied her face, looking for cracks. Lies. Anything that would give him permission to rebuild the walls. He didn't find it. Okay, he said softly. We can try. No promises, Victoria agreed. They sat in silence as the sun set, watching the water. Side by side, but not touching. It wasn't forgiveness yet. It wasn't love. But it was a beginning. 2 weeks later, Ethan closed the garage early. Victoria's car was parked out front when he emerged. Not the Mercedes, the rental she'd kept. She got out when she saw him, uncertain. I brought dinner. Thought maybe. If you weren't busy. She held up a bag from the Thai place downtown. Ethan looked at her. This woman who'd blown up her life to save his, Mia's at a sleepover. They went inside the garage, sat in the office, eating pad thai out of containers, talking about nothing important. The weather. The news. Cars that came in that week, but underneath was everything else. All the years, all the pain, all the what-ifs. Victoria noticed the drawing on the filing cabinet. New one. Stick figures. 3 of them this time. Dad, Mia, and a third figure labeled Vic. She drew that yesterday, Ethan said, following her gaze. Victoria's eyes filled. I love it. Yeah. She thought you might. Silence settled again. But comfortable this time. Ethan set down his food, looked at her. I was scared, he said quietly. That night. When they arrested me, when everything fell apart. I was 18 and terrified, and I thought my whole life was over. It wasn't your fault, I know that now. But knowing it here, he tapped his head, and knowing it here his chest, those are different things. What changed? Ethan's smile was small, genuine. You did. You came back. You fought. You gave me something I thought I'd lost. What? Proof that I wasn't the mistake, that I didn't deserve what happened. He reached across the desk, held out his hand. Victoria took it. Thank you, Ethan whispered. For not giving up. For finding the truth. Thank you for letting me try again. They sat there, hands linked, the garage quiet around them. Outside, Asheville settled into evening. Mountains dark against the sky. Stars beginning to appear. Inside, 2 people who'd lost each other 12 years ago took the first real steps toward finding each other again. This time, Ethan said softly, echoing words from a lifetime ago. Don't disappear. Victoria squeezed his hand. This time, she promised, I won't. The garage door was open to the night air, the autumn wind carrying leaves and possibilities. And for the first time in 12 years, Ethan Cole let himself believe in second chances.